Welcome back to the channel. One of my guys are here, Spencer Davies. We are going to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are going to be in the playoffs again. They're a 4 seed with some controversy, Spencer. We'll talk about that because there may have been some shenanigans to get that 4 seed, but the Cavs are playing the Orlando Magic in the first round, and I can't believe one of those teams is going to win a playoff series, Spencer. I wouldn't have projected that at the start of the year. So, where are we at with the Cavs? And ultimately, now that they're playing the Magic, what happens if they don't win a playoff series again this year?
I think some heads will roll if they don't get out of the first round against the Orlando Magic. Just considering that Orlando hasn't been to the playoffs with this core group, they're the ones coming in as kind of the rookies at this level. Whereas the Cavs, they're right back to where they started. They're at the 4 seed. They got home court. And you have veterans on this team that weren't on it last year, like Max Strus and George Niang. Add Tristan Thompson in the locker room. Add Marcus Morris in the locker room. So those guys, plus the experience that the younger guys and the young core got last year against New York, and that's what's going to, really be the difference.
Would you say this is a tough matchup for the Cavs in the first round, given the struggles that they had with the Knicks last year? Is this like a junior Knicks
Yeah,
that they're going to see in round one?
that's a really good point because Orlando is more of kind of a grinded out defensive minded team. You got some crazy length on that squad, like with Jonathan Isaac. Obviously, he's been playing a bit more small ball five. Wendell Carter. Who's actually someone that's given the Cavs some problems is Moritz Wagner. And obviously you have Franz, who's got a lot of length, tough minded defender like Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, who's been there, done that. And, you can even step up and talk about Markelle Fultz and his efforts on that end. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of grittiness that's going to be coming up to the series. It's funny because you mentioned that, and Jared Allen, the first thing he said post game was, "Yeah, it's going to be the first to 85 in the first game." So it's going to be ugly. It's probably going to be that series that's on NBA TV. We haven't found out who's playing where and what time everything is. I know it's on Saturday is game one in Cleveland, but yeah, it's going to be definitely a drag out type of series. But the Cleveland's hope is that adding in the offense that they brought in, just with the spacing with Max Strus and George Niang, and really just kind of the evolution of Evan Mobley to be able to stretch the floor a little bit more. Isaac Okoro's gotten better at his threes. So, hopefully their shooting and the additions that they've made to stretch the floor a little bit more, to be a little bit more dynamic offensively, not so pick and roll heavy, will help them out here.
The over-under for the first game is 207.5, which in the modern NBA is very low.
It is.
I want to take the under because I actually think that like Donovan Mitchell could struggle in this series. Orlando as a whole is going to struggle in this series. Is Paolo Banchero going to shoot above 40% consistently in this series? Why does this Cleveland team struggle with physicality so much?
I feel like they're just guys who don't have that much mass on them. It's not really their fault in that sense. You can be as aggressive as you want and be physical and tough minded. And sometimes there's just guys that are bigger than you. I mean, if you want an example, look what happened with Jared Allen against Miles Turner the other night. Jared Allen went crazy.
Yeah.
He had a great game. And Evan Mobley's been asserting himself more. He's really searching out mismatches, and he's also going at some of the taller guys now, putting his head down, little float shots here and there. The jump hooks look good. So they're being more aggressive, and they've been more that kind of mentality that you're talking about as far as the physicality goes. But it just, the rash of last year against New York is really the thing that carries on that kind of moniker and that kind of, mentality, and the outside world sees them as that. So I don't know, it's put up or shut up, obviously, because you're back to where you started. But Max Strus has, emphasized the importance of matching their physicality. George Niang is talking about imposing their will right away. They already, kind of addressed the matchup a little bit. And, Jared Allen's famous first words, he just said, throw the first punch. So, those are the things that are going to go into it. They can't give a young team confidence in this first game. It's going to be very pivotal.
Heads will roll is what you said at the start of this. I want to go back to that because that's what's important here. Is I think losing against the Knicks is one thing in hindsight. That loss has actually gotten better with age, even though it wasn't a good loss. You can't lose to the Magic.
No.
What happens if they do?
If they do, then I would fully expect a change at head coach. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, and it's the first thing that a lot of fans around here are talking about. They've been kind of preying on JB Bickerstaff's downfall, but to their point, it's actually kind of warranted the way that they finished the season. I know there were a lot of injuries, and I know that things didn't quite work out. You have the Donovan Mitchell knee injury, you had the Max Strus knee injury. Dean Wade's been out and still is out for the foreseeable future, dealing with an injury as well. Sam Merrill's got a neck strain right now. A lot of moving pieces, parts, but it's all down to mentality in the playoffs. And I think, no matter who you're rolling out there with, you've got to show pride. You've got to go out there and really impose your will, like they said in the locker room. And I think that's the biggest factor here. And you're going to see it from the tip if that's going to be the case, or if it's going to be another Knicks fiasco like we were just talking about. So, but JB, he's gone so up and down just as a head coach this season. I think he did an admirable job when you had all those guys missing, like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and some key contributors. They went on a fantastic run going into the All-Star break. We're sitting in a pole position, essentially, and just kind of lost it. They lost it. I think that they lost their attention to detail on the defensive end. I think that they were not generating quite as many threes as they'd hoped to. There was just a lot of, again, moving pieces, parts. Donovan Mitchell going down, I think, was the biggest one because he was playing hobbled the whole second half of the season. He's still not 100%, but at the very least, he's got a little bit of that burst back. He's got the ability to change direction. And he's been probably their best playmaker of the entire season, which is a development. If you look at the track record in his history, he's not usually the primary playmaker, but he has been this year. He's been pretty much their best point guard. And Darius Garland's done a really good job too, until the big moment, right? Until the fourth quarter, when he's had some really lackadaisical turnovers, or he's trying to fit in past the small windows. Those lead to turnovers, and the turnovers really hurt you. Karis LeVert was kind of turnover prone too late in the season, and he's been excellent overall. But those are things they got to clean up. They've got to take care of the basketball. That's the biggest thing against Orlando, and those long arms and them playing the passing lanes. That's the biggest thing, in my opinion.
To what extent is Donovan Mitchell's health a concern right now?
If you were to ask me that a week and a half ago, I'd have been on a 7 or an 8. But having seen him play on this last homestand, and even a little bit towards the end of that road trip on the West Coast, I think he's getting there. I think he's about 85%-ish. He is definitely moving better. He's going up for rebounds. You've seen him take off a couple times. Usually before the games, he goes up and dunks, right? That's the way he finishes his pre-game routine. He didn't quite get up huge on Friday night, but enough to where, okay, he's getting a little bit of lift back. He doesn't quite have that same ridiculous explosiveness, but he has the explosiveness of a lot of people that don't. So I think that's big there. I think he's getting his jumper back too. That's big. But most importantly, he's getting to the rim again. And I think when you're getting to the rim, you're getting to the foul line, putting pressure on the defense in order to spray out to guys like Evan Mobley in the corner or Max Strus up top at the wing, then you're in better shape. And I think your biggest, I don't want to say concern, but I don't know. I don't even want to say X factor, but just pay attention to Darius Garland. I think Darius Garland, this is big because he's been kind of off this whole season. He's had to deal with a lot of injuries. Last year he got poked in the eye like 3 different times. And he was dealing with some stuff. And then this year, he runs into Kristaps Porzingis' hip and misses a month and a half. So that's kind of deterred him from going into the paint. He's been kind of, gun shy, I guess, to try and drive, but it's getting better. It's getting a little better. That's another thing too. He lost like 12, 13 pounds because he couldn't eat. He couldn't drink after that injury. He broke his jaw, man. Like that's huge. And obviously from a conditioning standpoint too. But again, I think that he's in a better place. Again, not all the way back. He's definitely got more confidence in the jump shot. He nailed a huge 3 late in the game against the Pacers, right over Miles Turner. And that was a beautiful shot. Very confident looking jumper. I think they need to get him off the ball a little more and have Donovan do the playmaking, because I think that him as a catch shooter is really good. And I think that him playmaking off of passes is really good. Same goes for Max Strus in that vein. But Darius, I think, is the one to look out for in this series, just because, again, Orlando has so much size and length that they're going to be blitzing, man. They're going to try and get the ball out of him and Donovan Mitchell's hands, and then someone else is going to have to play make. Is it going to be Evan Mobley? He's been pretty good at that this year. Max Strus is coming off a plethora of assists. He just had his first triple-double of his career today, and a career-high 11 assists, and that's off of a 9-assist game too. So they've got a little bit more in that sense to, if those blitzes come, if those attacks come on the defensive end, that someone else can at least create for someone else.
Donovan Mitchell, second to last question. Is his future already sealed, or can they potentially, save the Donovan Mitchell era, extend the Donovan Mitchell era in Cleveland with a nice playoff run?
I think they can. I think the Knicks thing, to me, that's a lot of money. And you have to figure out some weird trades. Once you go,
I don't think they do it with Brunson.
I was going to say they wouldn't do it with Brunson. I know there's a lot of Julius Randle stuff floating out there. You got to pay Bogey, right? And you are paying Mitchell Robinson. You are paying, a lot of these guys. OG Anunoby, I'm sure, is going to command a lot of money.
They'll pay him. I don't know if they're going to pay Bogey.
Precious Achiuwa has done a good job for them.
I would package Bogey and Mitchell Robinson and picks.
But does that get it done is the question. That's the other thing.
No. I'm doing that in general, not for Donovan Mitchell. You have Jalen Brunson. I think the Donovan Mitchell thing is done. I think Donovan Mitchell's more like a Nets, Heat, question mark for anybody else type of thing.
Sure. But if you really want to get my inkling, so if they show out in this first round and then you're going to assume Boston gets to the second round. If they give them a fight, if they get past Orlando, that's the first thing. They don't get past Orlando, then you have a ton of questions. But if they get past the Magic and then they go into Boston and they give them a fight and they give them a good series, then I think they do have a chance at getting Donovan Mitchell back. And I think for Donovan, I don't know about. So I think of the word extension in terms of at least 3-4 years. I think Donovan's going to do a 1-1 if he comes back, or a 2-1 if he is, chooses to come back to Cleveland. And remember, you're entering Donovan Mitchell's last year of his contract coming up after this postseason.
Okay, last thing. How far can this team realistically go? Do you have predictions on what they can do? Like, do you think they're going to win? Do you actually think they're going to win the Orlando series and then potentially push Boston in the round 2 matchup?
I do think that they're going to win the Magic series. I just think they have a little bit more of a scoring threat than Orlando does. Paolo Banchero, I think the world of Paolo Banchero. Franz Wagner, I think he can really get it done too. Do you know what you're going to get every night from Jalen Suggs? Do you know what you're going to get every night from Gary Harris? What Max Strus is capable of in the playoffs, right? So you can add him as the third go-to guy after Mitchell and Garland. But maybe, Evan Mobley, like I said, has been asserting himself. Jared Allen's been asserting himself and really trying to attack those matchups, get inside, and then you're putting a ton of pressure on that. I think they also have, the size advantage in this just as far as their bigs go, because Orlando has a lot of tall guys too, but they don't really have mass. Wendell Carter is going to do a good job of contesting at the point of attack. That Jonathan Isaac's going to be great on switches. But that, I think, muscular wise, I think Jared Allen and Evan Mobley can do the job. I will say this though, I think, and I mentioned this earlier in the pod, is that Mo Wagner gave them a ton of problems though the last time they met in Cleveland. So pay attention to that, because I don't know how often Mo Wagner's been playing as of late, but that's probably something that Jamal Mosley is going to dial up. I think the bench matchup too, something that we didn't match up, is going to be interesting as well, because the Cavs are probably going to only go 8 deep, and Dean Wade's not going to be around. We'll see what happens with Sam Merrill. Sam Merrill can light up the entire game at certain points. I'm sure they'll be keyed in on him if he does play, but I really like, a guy like Cole Anthony. I like Markelle Fultz, and Joe Ingles is another part of this too. They're not completely, young on this team, and they have a little bit of leadership in that sense. So I'm definitely intrigued by the second unit, and we'll see what version of Karis LeVert, shows up too. Because again, he overall has had a really good season, but kind of came limping in.
All right, that's Spencer Davies. Thank you for joining the program. Subscribe to the channel. That's Bryan Fonseca, just my name with a Y. Follow Spencer Davies' work right there on the scroll. You can see it on social media at Spin Davies, and we will have more on this channel very soon.